Sippers, welcome to this week's episode of the Tea With Me podcast with me, who is absolutely Shane Todd, aka the Money Toad. You know, just getting his tongue to scoop up all those pounds, left, right, and centre. And also, of course, Shaney Boy Cute Cute. Listen, we've got a great episode, if I do say so myself, this week. Great episode. On last week's podcast, a couple of people asked me to chat about Black Lives Matter and everything that's going on there. And look, I stumbled my way through that with very little knowledge of what I was talking about. I can obviously offer my opinion that, there should be equality for everyone everywhere, but it's not that helpful to just have that kind of opinion on it. I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand the different perspective that I couldn't possibly have. So on the podcast this week, I'm chatting to my mate Cameron. We played football at Holywood together, and basically there's a couple of things need to know about Cameron. One is extremely cute. I'm just going to throw that out there. He's a cute guy, and also in lockdown he's let the hair grow out a bit. He's living in New York. Why not? You live in Northern Ireland. You're not really by law allowed to have long hair. You're not allowed to, as a guy, you're not allowed to have voluptuous hair. We all know that that's a rule, and you can go to McGabbery for it. So Cameron has had to move to New York just to grow his hair out a bit, and he looks all the better for it. Cameron was born and raised in Northern Ireland, and I think his mum was as well, but he's mixed race. His dad has like a Sri Lankan, an Indian, and a Malaysian background, and I love that I love the Cameron seniors just tripling up on the backgrounds. Great to see. So Cameron grew up in Northern Ireland with a unique perspective on things, and that's what I wanted to talk to him about, because as you see in the episode, I have kind of always thought, no, there's no racism in Northern Ireland, really. You obviously get the odd dickhead who, you read about carrying out a hate crime somewhere, spray painting on a wall, or you definitely do hear things here and there, but then you don't see that I feel like you don't see that frequently. You don't hear about it too often, or maybe it's one of those things where like you see so many of those stories you almost switch off from it. So I wanted to ask Cameron about growing up in Northern Ireland, not being white, and we're from the same town. So you're not going to meet anyone who's prouder of coming from where they're from. I'm from Holywood in County Down, and to me, Holywood is the best town in the world, and I'm so in love with the place because of the people. To me, like, obviously in nearly everywhere in Northern Ireland you get some sort of sectarianism, but for me, growing up in Hollywood, I did see it a little bit, but by and large, it wasn't really a thing. And it wasn't. It was treated as being like dirty almost, even when you were hanging about with fellow teenagers and stuff. If you heard sectarianism or saw it, it was almost weird. It left a bad nobody really liked it. I would have grown up and seen groups of friends hanging, like part of my groups of friends. You would have had, maybe if you were having a kickabout, some people in a Rangers shirt, some of the lads in Celtic shorts. It wasn't really a thing. So I've always grown up thinking, Hollywood, totally 100% no racism in Hollywood, and that's a crazy way to think, because of course there is. So I want to talk to Cameron about being from what I perceive as a brilliant town. So I had loads of questions for him, and he speaks incredibly well, and you can just tell he's a guy who's been brought up extremely well. So we had an excellent chat. Cameron's surname, I had to ask him how to pronounce it, which is kind of disrespectful, when you're like, mate, listen, I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to say your surname. I talk about the fact that, look, let's stamp out ignorance, and then after the podcast I had to message Cameron and go, mate, there's no way I can say this here. Cameron's surname is Tharmaratnam. Cameron Tharmaratnam. Now, he says after that, a lot of people call me Dharma, that's easier, and it sure is, it sure as heck is. I remember saying Cameron's name, and we talk about this on the football team sheet back in the day, and I remember just looking at it and going, no, I wouldn't be able to. It's too many letters, but we had a really good chat. I hope you guys enjoy it. I definitely did. I feel like I learned a lot from it, and and it was just great to have the conversation. I've rambled on for too long, and also, what's disrespectful just before we get into the podcast is anyone that I have like seen out that I know, like when I'm doing the shopping, when I'm out for a walk, why do people keep saying to me, "Have you got your haircut booked in yet?" Why are people looking at my actual hair and head and going, "Have you booked in with a barber yet?" And they're concerned for me, you know what I mean? Like, people are staging an intervention for me to get my hair cut. Listen, lockdown has given me a new perspective on many things, and one of them is hair. I'm growing this bad boy out. I don't know what's going to happen, but there's no limits to what is possible for this head. So stop saying to me, "When am I getting my hair cut?" because it's disrespectful. Also, before we get into the podcast, well, two things. Number one, patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. If you want to support this podcast, you want to get the bonus episode on a Monday, you want to watch my last year's stand-up special, The Todd Father, in its entirety, the Patreons are the only people that can do that. So that's patreon.com/teawithmepodcast. There's like live episodes. There's loads of great stuff on there. Even if you want to just have a look, you can, and make a call on that. Also, my tour's been rescheduled, and most of the new tickets have gone on sale. So you can check out my website, my new website, which I made myself, which is a marvel because I'm a very old man who's not good with technology. So it's theshanetodd.com, as in, "Are you Shane Todd?" And I go, "I'm the Shane Todd." It's theshanetodd.com. You want to come and see my brand new tour. The show's called Somebody Told Me. Guys, I'll be honest, it's really good. Come check it out. Without further ado, I don't know which one it is. Let's get into it. This is Tea With Me. This is my interview with my mate Cameron, who's over in New York at the minute. I hope you enjoy it. Sip, sip, ribbit. Cameron, anytime someone comes on the podcast, my first question is, do you drink tea? What sort of tea are you into? And I see that you're drinking something at the minute.
Yeah.
Tell me it's tea.
It's actually coffee. I know that it is a bit disrespectful, and I'm sorry, I apologize, but it's 10 a.m. here and I have just gotten out of bed.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I mean,
I'm currently sitting on my bed. So.
I like waking up with a cup of tea first thing in the morning, but I got to be honest, like, don't tell the listeners, like, coffee's my first drink of the morning now.
Oh yeah, are you doing it's just like instant coffee?
I'm not cultured when it comes to coffee. I'm not really into coffee. I just have, the wee pods, and I don't really like the taste of coffee, but I love hitting the pod machine. Like, I just love, I love that thing gives you a drink. Yeah, I've got a wee Nespresso machine, and I just love going up to it, and then it flashes, and then it tells you when it's ready, and then you put the cup up, and then it pours. Like, like, technology wise, for me that still feels cutting edge. I'm like, how is it possible? And for so long I thought in those pods was just like liquid coffee, and then one of them fell apart on me recently, and I realized that it's actual coffee in that. So every day is a school day basically when it comes to coffee for me. You're in New York. Whenever the last time I was in New York, because I just like get coffee in Starbucks here or basic cafes, I went in, I was like, "Oh, could I have a coffee?" Over there they take it like really seriously. Like, the guy was just mentioning all these countries to me. I was like, "What are you doing?"
Where were you? Like, where in New York?
Oh, this was just like an independent coffee shop, and the guy's like, "Oh, what do you want to do? Like Guatemala or Costa Rica?" I was like,
they're so into
"No, I just want coffee."
They're so into it. I'm like, I just drink my coffee like black. Same with I drink my tea just black as well. Like, just like,
you drink tea black?
Yeah, I drink tea. I don't have milk or sugar in my tea.
That's not tea.
I know I'm not coming off very well from the very start here.
No, the listeners will be disgusted, but we'll bring it back. So I wanna start in the present, and then I'm gonna ask you stuff about the past. You're in New York at the minute. I actually didn't know that you were living in New York. But a guy we used to play football with told me, and I was like, "Oh, let me check out." So followed you on Instagram, and I see that like you've been to a load of protests. You've kind of been really involved in this movement, I guess, if you want to call it that. So what's the reality in New York at the minute? Like, what's kind of going on the streets? Because I just see stuff on Twitter.
It's kind of crazy at the minute. It's bandit country. Like, there's pretty much no like you've kind of got two sides of it. You've got people, these major like street parties on the street because like just people, because all the bars are open like outside and they're open things. So people are just drinking, before it was, you could never walk around the street in New York with an open drink or open anything. Now everyone's just like walking around with their drinks, like sitting on stoops, like, so you've got that side of it where there's loads of parties and everything all the time. And then that's in Brooklyn, maybe mainly though, and like lower Manhattan. But then you've got the other side of it, which is obviously like we're still in the wraths of COVID, and especially my area was one of the main epicenters of the outbreak. The hospital around the corner was one of the main areas where it first broke out. Like the first woman in New York died in Wyckoff General there, and like we're still dealing with that as well. And then on top of that, you got the protests as well.
Like, I mean, it feels like a melting point of so many different things, of like, which, one would be a big deal, but to have, from what you're saying, like full coronavirus epicenter, to have people being able to buy pints, which instantly makes things like way crazier. And then these protests, like, does it feel more like an island? Like, does Manhattan sort of feel more like an island, if that makes sense? Like, it
feels, I didn't go into Manhattan, so I live in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
And I have for 3 years, but I go into Manhattan every day for work or for auditions or for whatever. But now, like, since coronavirus, I think March, we didn't go into Manhattan for maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months. And it just felt like it's just across the water, but it felt like a completely different place. Do you know what I mean? And now when you're going in, I mean, obviously during the protests, and the protests have been peaceful. Like, the thing is, they're not peaceful protests, but they're non-violent. Like, the majority of the protests, 99% of the protests are non-violent from all sides of the protesters. But at the start, there was some violence, and there was like looting in the stores. Like, if you walk through Manhattan now, downtown, like all the stores are boarded up. There's like broken glass. It's a bit of a ghost town, actually. And then obviously, like at night and stuff, there's obviously protests going around every night and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a bit strange like that.
Were you kind of at the protests? Like, if things like did kick off a bit, would you sort of show off a bit because you used to live in Northern Ireland for so long, and you would like, have like background knowledge of riots, even just from watching the news? I feel like maybe over there, like, rioting and protests and stuff is kind of new to a lot of people. Whereas here, like, we're just like, it's just one of those things.
I mean, that growing up in Hollywood, I was, I was surrounded by protests and riots all the time. Like, I was born and raised on it, so I'm a veteran. But
it's so funny being from Hollywood, because Hollywood's literally 4 or 5 where we're from. It's like 4 or 5 miles from Belfast, where so much rioting has happened over the years, and we live like quite literally like a stone's throw away. No pun intended. And there is like less than nothing in terms of that kind of thing. It's like you're so close to it, yet like the worst thing I've ever seen in Hollywood is like I remember seeing 2 middle-aged guys like have like a little bit of a duel over like spilled hummus. Like, that's the closest.
Spilled hummus?
Like, some guy had spilled hummus over his mate's loafers, and they just had a quarrel. That's the closest the Troubles has got to Hollywood.
That's the most Hollywood quarrel. I don't think like anywhere in Belfast, anywhere else, you're like, you spilled hummus on my loafers, and then just have at it. Like, that's
Hollywood. Hollywood's the only place during a fight or like a street brawl you'll hear the word besmirched used.
Besmirched.
You besmirched me. But yeah, I mean, so my thing is, I don't really watch the news, and not even from a point of view of like, fake news or the media are lying to us. I literally just like, I'm trying to work as much as I can during the day.
Yeah.
And it's maybe ignorant to say, but the news kind of is a bit of a buzzkill. I prefer to watch like Selling Sunset on Netflix or 90 Day Fiance. So you're actually there, and you're seeing much more than anybody will see. So the first protest you went to, what was that like, and what made you like go and get involved and go down to it?
I think from the moment this all kind of kicked off, obviously with, it was the George Floyd moment, and there was Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed a few weeks before, and it was kind of building up, and you could feel it here. Like, you could feel the tension. You could also feel, because everyone's been, New York's so tightly packed and everyone's stuck in these apartments. There was just this, and it's getting really hot here. Like, it's about 30 degrees outside, and I can't open my windows because there's road works happening for the past 5 months on my road. So I can't even I'm sweltering here. But so everyone's feeling like that. Everyone's like this. So it was a perfect cocktail almost of just this rising tension, these outbreaks of unfilmed police brutality that we were just, that was just it was just going to happen. It just came to a boil, and the movement's really kicked off. And I kind of wanted to go because I felt like it's human rights. Do you know what I mean? It's not even it's basic human rights. That's all they're asking for. That's all anyone's asking for, is protesting. And honestly, the police over here in the States, like, when you see it, the police brutality is something else.
I think one of the craziest things about it is how, from an outside in point of view, how almost desensitized to it you get.
Yeah.
How you can be flicking through, I can be flicking through Twitter, and although sometimes think you have to face like realities like that, like police brutality videos,
mm-hmm.
I don't always want to see that. It's very, very difficult to watch that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's crazy how you can be, because everything is filmed nowadays. You can see something like that, and then you see the thing below it on Twitter, which is a bit of football news, and all of a sudden you're reading the football news when the impact of what you've just seen before, it sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, no matter what it is, something so brutal doesn't always resonate with you because we see so much. But it is a case of, like, for me, like, probably living over here, and you hear things, but I feel like over here you just hear about things in waves. You hear a lot about police brutality, especially towards the Black community, and then you maybe don't for a year, and then a couple of incidents will happen together.
Absolutely.
So you're not always aware of it. You're not always thinking of it, but I mean, that's only the stuff that is captured on video. Not all of it. Yeah. Not all of it actually is. When you were moving over to the States, was that anything you were thinking of? Like, was that, the fact that you're not white whenever you moved over to America? Was that something? Did you suddenly think things might be different for me here than they were back home?
Yeah. There was not specifically when I was flying over. That was the last thing I was thinking about. Firstly, I was just thinking about, like, where the fuck am I going to live?
Yeah.
Where am I going to get money? Like, absolutely, all I had was my place in school. I had no, like, job, place to live, anything, right?
See, at the age of 32, that really gives me anxiety at that thought. I'm like, if you had just phoned me, I could have booked you somewhere. Like, please, the next time that happens, let me know, because I just need to make sure you're settled.
But there was a point where, obviously, like, with the current administration, with the Trump administration, it's been really bad for the past 3-4 years since I've been here. It's been 3 years, so 4 years the year before that as well. But especially with immigration, like, detention and stuff, they went through this thing last year where they had ICE, which is this immigration. They kind of round up illegal immigrants, but they do it illegally. Like, they'll just knock on your door, or they'll go through the neighborhoods, and they'll just arrest you on the spot. And there was a worry that I was going to get
iced.
Get iced. Yeah, I was going to get iced. Because I was working in a restaurant at the time, which,
questionable recruitment policy.
We'll say not no more about that, but they were going around my neighborhood, like, and the chefs in the restaurant and the other people were like, you might get picked up literally by accident because of what you look like. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I was kind of wary of that for a while, and then that was last summer and the fall, and then this year, it's just it is like, when I go to rallies, like, I am considered a POC, a person of color, but, like, I don't even, like, think, it's weird. I grew up not thinking of it that way.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask you. And almost I feel like I'm watching. I'm like, am I going to say like something offensive, or am I going to say the wrong thing or make a big presumption? But I think having conversations like this, you have to realize that you might make a mistake at some point. Is this a ridiculous assumption to make? But growing up in Northern Ireland, do you almost not feel like you're of a different race or a different color, if that makes sense? Because the big attitude is, and I have been guilty of this definitely myself, is like, oh, there's no racism in Northern Ireland, like that doesn't exist. So
no, yeah, I it was weird because I grew up, I didn't realize until, it's weird, I didn't realize until I was maybe 11, 12, and I was playing football. A lot of it came through football. Like there's just this ignorance. It just, I don't know. So I didn't realize until I was that age, and then I kind of like became aware of it. And then it's more social racism, it's casual racism that's very much prevalent in Northern Ireland. Because if you look at Northern Ireland, there's something like 99% white, or it's certainly, there's, it's a very small minority. So there's a lack of awareness around certain social cues and things that are said that are just, you just kind of, you shrug it off at the time. Like I just didn't pay much attention to it when I was younger, and I did get called things like, and I did experience it in one way or another. But like coming over here and talking to people here, like especially talking to, Black people and other people, like I tell them my experiences and we share experiences and stuff, and they're like, that's not okay. Like that's not, if they're like, they're shocked. But I grew up not thinking anything of it,
Well, I think we have a big culture here where, and obviously there are people who are just fucking mean and do want to get, do want to embarrass you or whatever, or hurt you by what they say. But you will, I'm sure, have had people that are like, I'm going to make a joke with them about not being white, and this is the sentence that someone from here is going to say that will be offensive when someone goes, I love it. They never love it. No one ever loves it. When someone's like, trust me, you'll get a good laugh out of this when I say this to him. I mean, you at the time, you're probably like, that on, mate. But like, do you feel that there were some people who like overdid it, trying to make you feel like, here, man, I'm all right with you not being white?
Yeah. there was just sometimes, there was just people who were like, there was just like small occasions, so it was never overly dramatic.
Yeah, like, so you and I played for the same football team, and I remember seeing the team sheet, must have been like one of the first weeks you joined, and your surname, and I was like, I don't want to make any assumptions about Cameron, but I'm going to say that is not a typical North Down surname. You know what I mean? There is
non-Irish
12 more letters there than any name that I've seen before. And sometimes I think there is the thing of like, you certainly personally, maybe you do want to let someone, like, say you meet someone who's new in this country. I would kind of want to chat to them, and maybe I would, by trying to make them feel comfortable, maybe you do make them feel a bit weird because you focus so much on them. And like, you know that thing of there's memes and GIFs and stuff. I don't know if it's GIF or GIF, but I say GIF, and
I think it's GIF.
It's GIF, yeah. Well, that's the main debate I want to put to bed here. And that's what a lot of the riots are about: is it GIF or GIF?
I think I've seen a lot of signs about that. Like I've seen a lot of protest signs.
Yeah. Just one guy. Really, I mean, it's me, really passionate about it. I mean, the reason I couldn't go to a protest in America at the minute, involving race, is because, for some reason, and I hope once it grows it doesn't look like this, but I have young Hitler hair at the minute, like 100%.
Oh, you definitely do. It's a good thing you can't grow any facial hair.
I know. If I was going to protest, I'd have to fire a snapback on or a beanie beforehand, because automatically I'd be like, no, that's not the side I'm here for, But there is, I think, and I've definitely done this before, where, and there's memes of this kind of thing. Say I'm walking through Holywood High Street, and I see a black guy walking down the street. I will like give him like a friendly nod and this look. Now, I won't do that to any white people that I pass. But what is it in me that makes me think that I have to give this guy like a special acknowledgement. And then I think now with hindsight, I'm looking back, I'm like, he probably thinks like I was, you know, I there's something wrong with me.
I think like, I don't know. I think yeah, there's definitely something wrong with you, but
well, no, that's unrelated to this, but yeah, there is.
That's
but
another topic entirely. Like,
yeah.
I think that happens. I think you'd be surprised at like how often that happens.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like to me, but I think like, I mean, I'm also guilty of doing things like that. It's because you want to like prove that you're not biased in any way. You know,
Yes.
there's like something inside you that you're like, okay, yeah.
You
know what I mean? Yeah. Like, okay.
That's the look exactly.
You want to go online? Yeah.
Like, yeah, like you pay for a guy's stuff.
So you know,
if you're in the queue at a shop, you're like, mate, fucking let me pay for that. Wise up. Come on.
like McDonald's.
I'm carrying your shopping home, mate. You know, he's like, you're definitely fucking not. I don't want you to know where I live. Yeah, football is a big one, I guess, where, you know, the football changing room can be a hilarious place, but it's also brutal at times as well. And
the football changing room is a really brutal place, actually.
It's because part of the reason for that is, a main reason for that is because we delude ourselves into thinking that we play top end football. No, we don't. But so many of us build it up in our heads that Saturday afternoon we are professional footballers. So there's that thing of like, it's the release, it's the week's release, you know, it's the weekend, it's Saturday, you get to play football. You might score a goal, you'll be telling all your mates about it. So it is like a kind of very masculine, like almost like an alpha environment. And people are always like, there's also like a wee bit of nerves before a game. So people are always like almost performing in the changing room, you know, like taking the piss out of this person for that. Then what was there, like, did you experience times where someone was saying something to you like that the more you thought about it, you were like, oh, that's very, very, very out of order and sly?
Definitely. There's, and I can't give like exact examples.
Yeah.
Because like I looking back, I don't want to like say it in the wrong way, or I don't want to even ad-lib it, do you know what I mean? Or but it's I can't think of exact examples, but there was times like there was and I was guilty of it too. Like I fed into it. Like I fed into it my entire life because that's the only way. Like I just thought that was it. Like I was like, okay, I'll just, you know, it's nothing to me. I'll just feed, you know. But
I mean, the making an extra effort thing, to me, that feels like a good thing, because, you know, if someone's making an extra effort and they're like giving you loads of attention, it's sort of like, hopefully you could say to that person like, here, actually, I'm not comfortable with like this or whatever or that. And I think we in Northern Ireland definitely we're awkward. You know, we're socially awkward. We try and make people like, we try and be friendly, and I think we are friendly people for the most part, but we're awkward. Whereas I can't remember growing up hearing many conversations where people just talk things out, or someone says like in America, Americans are a big fan of like, actually I'm uncomfortable with that. You know, we need to. People just are more open there, whereas I think with these protests and the George Floyd incident, you are hearing people here definitely even having conversations that are a bit more, they're like less scared to make a mistake in a conversation, because that's how you learn at the end of the day, isn't it? You talk about awkward things and you go, okay, I've got a new perspective on that, or that makes sense to me because we've talked about it. I think we probably here are guilty of just like covering our ears to any idea of a problem of racism. Like I've chatted to so many American comedians, especially Black American comedians, where they've asked me about Ireland, and you know, they've said things like, what would it be like if I performed there? And I'm like, we love you, you know, there's no, you know, nobody's racist here. And it when the protests and stuff happen, then you realize like, oh no, there is racism everywhere. It's just that when you're not looking for it, you don't see it.
It's that's what it is. It's just in Northern Ireland, like the main problem is, like you said, people don't talk about things. Like we have this ingrained thing that we just brush everything off, or we just, you know, we let everything slide, or we just kind of joke it away, do you know what I mean? And that's really good for certain things, but for things like this, it's good that these conversations are happening, and that's the best thing that can happen on a social level from the result of this. And that's the great thing about this as well, is because it's over here, it's literally about systemic racism. Like, it's literally, it's about black men, women, trans people dying, at the hands of police brutality. But over, like, at home, it's not like that, but it's having an effect where we're having these conversations, and that's like a good thing that's going to happen from this.
Sippers, let me really quickly interrupt the podcast for 2 quick messages. The first of which is Streamvale Farm, as in the Streamvale Farm, where everybody went as a kid. And I went whenever I was a kid with my nursery school group, and I was in an enclosure with a lot of lambs, and I was wearing waterproof gear, like a waterproof trousers and top, and I was maybe 2 or 3 years old, and the lambs started to eat the trousers and top, and the adults frankly didn't do enough. And I've been traumatized since then. And then whenever I went back to shoot this video, obviously very, very socially distanced, I was back near the lamb enclosure and genuinely started to hyperventilate a wee bit, and my asthma kind of came back. But that's besides the point. Streamvale Farm are doing a delivery thing called Moo to You, as in me to you, but moo as in cows, which is very funny. And what they're essentially doing is they were delivering milk to people, and now they've opened it up and they're delivering meat, they're delivering veg, bread, whatever you want. They'll deliver. I mean, not whatever you want, just those specific things. But they supply Dale Farm with their milk, and now they're delivering that milk fresh to people's doors with the best possible dates. Because as we all know, guys, there's nothing worse than a bad date on milk, and when you smell it and go, oh Jesus, or what about when you pour a bit out in your tea and there's bits at the top? The worst thing of all time. So their website is streamvale.com/moo to you, and they've expanded everywhere that they're delivering stuff, and they've teamed up with Mash Direct, Streamvale Ice Cream. I mean, that is them, I guess. Streamvale Ice Cream, some bakers, fishmongers, Corey's Butchers. So if you want to get yourself really good quality produce, that's where you go. Streamvale.com/moo to you. The other thing I want to plug is 2 of my best friends, Tony and Ewan, have decided to, well, they've already done it basically. They ran a marathon over a night, so they did 5k runs on the hour every hour between 9:30 at night and 4:30 in the morning, which is beyond mental, but they did it, and I think that was a class thing to do, and it was something that I really enjoyed watching from the comfort of my bed. I checked the Instagram stories in the morning, I was like, guys, I'm right behind you, but not literally. They were like, if any mates want to join us for a leg, I was like, best of luck with that, because the money toad's in a scratcher for sure. But you can read a little bit about they're raising money for Peter House, which is a fantastic charity, and we played an all-night football match in Dublin around this time last year for it, which was brilliant, and the guys have just kept that support going. So that's justgiving.com/fundraising/Tony and Ewan. And Ewan is spelled EUNAN because Ewan also does sound a little bit like onion, which is what a lot of people call Ewan. So I just thought I would spell that out for you. And yes, that is disrespectful probably to have to spell that out to everyone who's called Ewan. So to my friend Ewan and all Ewans everywhere, I apologise, but there is money for a great cause, so go check that out. Back to the pod. Like, one thing I've thought a lot more about is even the phrase equal rights. Like, when you really think about what that is, I think it's a comedian, Michael Shea, has a really good bit about it. It literally is asking for just to not be treated better than anyone else. It's like, treat me, cops everywhere. There's good cops and bad cops, and bad cops can treat people really badly. You're almost like, I don't want, like, nobody wants special favors. They just literally want more fairness, and they don't want to be, so many times you hear, especially listening to podcasts, you hear about black guys that are waiting for a friend outside a building or whatever, and they're asked so many questions that a white person wouldn't be asked, and it's tough. It's tough to hear, because you feel like, what can you do about it? Like, I think especially when you see protests where there's no violence, like, that is great. But then when you see protests where it does kick off, like, I can understand that as well. What's the worst thing that you've seen, like, going to any of the protests? Like, has there been a moment where you've you felt like a bit scared, or you've seen something that you really didn't like?
There was one, like, there obviously when you go to these protests, there's a huge amount of like police. There's an enormous police presence. So like sometimes you're marching on the street where there's thousands of people. You can't see the front. You can't even see the back. It's just people. And then you see this wall, this 3-person deep wall of police. And you're just like, well, okay, this is like a recipe for disaster. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But largely, like, the ones I've been to, largely there hasn't been any physical altercations between the police and the protesters. But there was one where we'd been walking for about 6 hours, 5 hours, and we were taking a left up the street we were up the upper end of Manhattan. And around the bend, as we were crossing an avenue, there was this guy, like big, enormous guy, like just, it's literally, if you were to like draw a neo-Nazi, you would just draw this guy.
Yeah, my hair.
Yeah, with your hair. Or like, you know, if he was younger, he would have your hair, but he's like older now, so he's lost it, obviously. Unfortunately, that's probably going to happen to you.
The balding Hitler look isn't good. Also, why is that going to happen to me? I'm 32, I'm very old now, and I have a great head of hair.
But he was, you know, he was just like, he's standing there, and he was just like giving the finger to all the protesters, like shouting racial slurs and everything, like on the other end of the barricade. And, you know, but everyone, all the organizers were like, ignore him, just keep going. And that's like the thing, and just keep going. But one kid ran behind, this wee kid ran behind and kicked him on the back of the leg. But he was so big that when he tried to run after him, he couldn't run after him. He's just enormous. He was like, and just stopped. And the wee kid ran behind this group of guys, and they were all just standing up to him like, what are you actually going to do? But, you know, it's stuff like that. You can't feed into the antagonism, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no,
like the looting just does not help anybody, and looting happens on all sides. And I feel like a lot of the looters are there to loot, you know what I mean? They're like, listen, some guys like, listen, I need a pair of football boots here. Like, people are going in specifically for size 11 Predators at times, you know.
JD Sports or JJB. Is JJB still around?
No, unfortunately not. R.I.P. JJB.
R.I.P. JJB.
I don't know where to get shin guards now. Remember the JJB beside Castle Court?
Yes, that's the one I picture every time I think of it.
3 stories of discount sports goods. I was going to ask you, have you seen Dave Chappelle's special?
The 8-minute 46-second one. I haven't actually seen it yet. I've been watching a load of Hassan Minhaj.
Yeah, he's great.
I love Hassan Minhaj. Like, I absolutely love that guy. He's special. Have you seen a lot of it?
Yeah, I've seen his Patriot Act.
Yeah, I've been watching the Patriot Act.
So yeah, Dave Chappelle's special is not what I thought it was going to be. I was like, I know he's going to talk about this, but that is, you know, it's more of a. It was more of like a real TED Talk, like a real talk TED Talk kind of thing, and there's like definitely bits of comedy in it, but that was the first time that I had, because I didn't really know what it was going to be, and I sat down to watch it, and I didn't look away from the TV. I wasn't like Twitter. I wasn't scrolling, so it's the first time that I had an uninterrupted opinion of that situation, and that was kind of when I think the enormity of the situation like hit home a bit, you know, because this is like pretty much my favorite comedian, like best comedian of our generation, and hearing his opinion on it, and him talking about like stuff that's obviously very, very tough to talk about in such a great way was great. Yeah, you should definitely watch it. It was really good.
Yeah, I will check it out. Like, I just haven't had a chance to at the minute.
And what about, has your attitude of home changed since you've been away? And like, you missing home more, or you missing home less? Do you feel like with these protests, with these rallies, do you feel like almost like you have more of a purpose or something? Like, do you feel like, oh, you should be there, if you know what I mean? Are you like, this is important to kind of like be here? And
I feel like, yeah, because I could have left obviously when the lockdown happened and all that. Like, I could have got a flight home. You can fly back to your home country, but I wanted to stay. I wanted to ride it out and see, like, you know, like, this is the place that I've called home for 3 years. I wanted to stay in. I think now with this, like, it's definitely, and then with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, like, it's given me definitely the confidence to kind of start exploring and like writing things based off my experience in Northern Ireland, because I always felt like that I always felt growing up that I wasn't Northern Irish enough to write about Northern Ireland.
Right.
Even though I was born and raised there. And I always felt that I wasn't brown enough to write about being South Asian in Northern Ireland. I just felt like I was caught in between this middle of I'm not brown enough and I'm not white enough, and I don't know what that is. And I think like being part of this, you kind of realize that it's those small experiences and those small things, and you have a perspective that maybe other people don't have. And I think that's going to be, and I think it's definitely important for me to go back and, you know, prioritize certain aspects of my life, like working with community and, you know, seeing what I can do with my skills to help like parts of the community and stuff in that way. Because here, like, a massive problem is the funding. The big thing is when they say defund the police, they mean don't necessarily completely defund the police.
Yes.
The police budget is more than 5 times that of the Department of Education in New York City. It's over 5 times the amount given to youth and community centers, youth and community programs. And when you hear Black people talk about their experience, they're not getting, like, in school, their schools, they have to choose between, like, we take drama, art, music, like these programs for granted. We're like, oh, you know, if you don't want to do them, you don't have to do them. If you want to do them, you have every opportunity to do them at every level. They don't have that opportunity. And they don't learn about Black history, and they don't learn, like, about the rich history that they have. And you see, like, where the violence occurs in these communities, it's in communities that aren't invested in. And when you say defund the police, there's more police than counselors in schools. We need to fund, like, mental health education. We need to fund counselors in schools. We need to fund communities, youth programs, like education. And that's the only way that's why it's systemic racism. That's the only way it's going to work, is because
I think people would be more than happy to fund things like that are performing really well. For example, people here who maybe have been not big supporters of the NHS are now all of a sudden like, you know, we're all for the NHS because we can see how great a job it's doing. But if you're living in America and you're seeing the job that the police are doing, of course you're like, well, no, now I'm not happy that that's where my money's going. You know, if it was different and everybody there felt they were being treated equally and felt safe, and, you know, you saw that the police were doing a good job. But yeah, I mean, that's totally understandable. But let me ask you finally, like, kind of a big question. When people you speak to at protests, at rallies, and just friends, when you're having conversations there, oh, by the way, see, when you were talking about you know, your perspective on home, and do you know what I'm delighted with? That you still have your accent, because I was like, I know, the worst thing was, I was like, we're going to Zoom here and you're going to have like an American accent, and I, the whole time, would not have been able to make eye contact. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's that.
It was at the first Christmas I came back, I was torn apart for maybe a week by my family and my friends, and I've just it's kicked it out of me. Like, I can't. There's no way I'd be ruined.
Yeah. So no, I love that you've kept your accent. I was gonna ask you, whenever you speak to people that are out on protests, and what's the general vibe on a solution for this, on practical ways where things can be changed, even if there's small steps. Like, obviously people are asking for equality, but what practical things are they asking of the police, of the government?
They're asking, there's a number of policies that need to be put in place to you know, like a ban on chokeholds, a ban on basically brutal police methods of restraining citizens, more transparency within the police. So the records that the a police misconduct record is not available to the public, but now through policy it is becoming available in a number of states. And then like I said before, like reallocation of budget is a massive one. And you know, the kids that the people organizing these protests are kids. I've been to a number of protests which are thousands upon thousands of people and non-violent, extremely well organized. These are 17-year-old, 16-year-old, 18-year-old kids, like, and it's unbelievable. And they're just all their preaching is like what I've been saying, you know, is unity and compassion, and it's not about revenge, and it's not about rising up against and it is rising up, but it's not like it's not a violent revolution. It's just asking for, you know, go out and vote the right people in, educate yourself, have the conversations that we're having, and just slowly build up into a new system which, you know, creates an equal opportunities for everyone and creates this society. Because if you look at like a good example is if you look at let's take Hollywood for example, right? There's no police.
No. Well, there is, but the police station has opening hours, right? So the police station in Hollywood is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you know that you're living in a safe area when even the criminals agree that at like 7 on the button, let's knock it in the head, you know, like that. No, you don't see police out really on the beat. You'll see a police car pass once a day, maybe if you're on the high street. But no, there's no real police presence.
Yeah. So let's take you take Hollywood and you put it in America. That's like a very comfortable white suburban neighborhood with funding to all the schools, funding to all the community programs, everything, right? There's no need for a police presence. But then if you take like another area which is which it doesn't have as much funding, which doesn't have as good schooling, for some reason there's a massive increase spending in police. And you can see that where the correlation is here. And you can see that by investing in the right things, it takes away the need for an excessive police force. So that's, you know, that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Like it
feels like people are striving for, I mean, at the very least, a conversation. You know what I mean? Like conversations, like it
really is like, it's just equal opportunity, and like everyone to have these conversations, and you know, you see the word like ally thrown about, like how to be an ally, how to, you know, have these conversations, address racism when you see it, address like casual racism when you see it, and things like that. But
what to finish, like what good reading do you recommend for people if someone's been interested because of this chat we've had on the podcast and like wants to like read articles on this, but like me is probably a bit like, oh, where do you start on the internet? You know, I don't want to read like a biased opinion. I kind of want like a fair opinion.
Well, if you're some good pages to follow on Instagram, to like keep up with what's going on. Warriors in the Garden is one. And then there's Black Lives Matter Greater New York is another one. Justice for George NYC is another one. And then if you want to look online, there's things like, actually I have like a list. If you want to like places to donate as well, there's the Brooklyn Community Bail Fund, which is a bail fund for people who have been either arrested illegally during protests, people of color, Black people who have been arrested illegally. There's changethenypd.org. There is the Emergency Release Fund .com, and there is, if you type in BLMNY, you can find out all the information that what they're asking for, all things like that, the policy changes. And again, like if you just look up, there's so many things on Instagram floating about as well, and you'll see through Warriors in the Garden stuff, they always post, they're really like your young activists, they're always posting Black authors. Just I think also by reading, especially like plays as well. I know it's like plays aren't everyone's big thing, but by reading a play written by a Black author about a Black experience, like Lorraine Hansberry's one, Jeremy O'Harris is another one. If you look up these names, you will just like, you'll get an idea of the experience. Do you know what I mean? By reading a play that is actively set between people interacting with each other, you'll feel like, oh, I've been part of this conversation before. I've been that person on that side of the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just things like that.
Well, we'll link. We'll link all those, or whatever ones you can send me. We'll link them in the podcast description.
Definitely, that would be great. Also, there's a good page on Instagram, is Progressive Politics NI. Is a really good one, and that keeps you updated with all the politics in NI that are, you know, some of the progressive movements and stuff to do with this. But I gotta say, like, the Belfast, did you go to the Belfast City Hall protest?
No, well, basically, like, we're like, not just social distancing, we're shielding because of the baby at the minute.
Oh yeah, because of the baby. Yeah.
So we can't go to anything like that.
How's
but
that
I see that from what I saw, it was the most like middle class like, people literally were social distancing in like we designated areas at a protest, which I love. You know, there's something about that is beautifully Northern Irish. You know, but it seemed great. And loads of friends went down to that, and it of course you had a counter protest. But I feel like everyone kind of seemed to, from the outside, and people seemed to behave kind of.
Yeah, it's
I think even the counter protest was a lot of guys who just wanted to get out of the house. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of,
I can imagine.
A lot of the guys who were like guarding the statues or whatever, they didn't even know what the statues were. Like, quite a few of the guys were like, "I'll be honest, I'm just happy to be kind of getting a bit of vitamin D and getting out."
Here, I'm dead excited to come back. Like, I just booked my flight for June 30th.
Oh, happy days! Oh, June 30th. Oh, happy days. We should socially distance meet up when you come back, because
definitely should.
We should have a conversation about you say, like, you know, you would love to write something, but you felt this and you felt that. Well, like, that's the thing to write about.
Yeah, I think, like,
we should have a chat about that.
I think that's like I think that's also going to be a really exciting thing in Northern Ireland as well. There's so many great Northern Irish artists coming through, or Irish artists coming through, and this movement is just going to give the ones who maybe didn't feel they had a voice now. Like, and it's going to be, I think we're going to see like an explosion of really cool work coming through. Like, new work. Do you know what I mean? Because like everything you see is always about sectarian violence or sectarian, you know what I mean, or the troubles, or it's always like.
Oh, 1,000%. And I've been in stuff like that before, and I've written stuff like that before that is about the same things, and you're sort of like going, this is an easy win. And I've done it with stand-up before, and about a year ago I was like, that's not a challenge anymore. So I've stopped doing that. Like, I'm writing a thing at the minute about working class Belfast, and there is like a paramilitary character in it, but you don't know what side he's from. That's irrelevant. And yeah, I mean, feel like we could, I mean, you know, growing up with your background in Hollywood in Northern Ireland, that could make for someone interesting. Obviously, you know, I can play your dad in it. I'm joking. Jesus Christ.
No, you did. You've met my dad as well. Like, I mean,
in Nando's,
you two standing next to each other. Like, could you imagine?
I met your dad in Nando's. That's right.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You did. He loves Nando's. He absolutely loves Nando's. I've never met, like.
Forget playing your dad. Maybe I'd just be best friends with your dad.
He doesn't, like, this dude, like, this Indian guy, like, doesn't. I think he eats more Nando's than he eats Indian takeout or Indian food. It's absolutely crazy. He has a Nando's card. He has like a Nando's card. He like goes for lunch with his work meetings. He's like, my mom's like, you know, Suresh, where are you? And he goes, I'm at a work meeting, Karen. I'm at a work meeting, and she turns to me and she goes, he's at Nando's. Or it's so.
Nando's. Well, look, let's when you come back, we'll have some sort of socially distanced, anti-backed Nando's.
Yeah, well, we should have one at Boojum. Boojum open at the moment?
It's open. It's click and collect, and it's just weird. Like, I went to get a coffee in Belfast today, and it's just weird, you know. But it's nice. It's nice to get back. Boojum, Nando's, whatever you want, we'll do that. But cheers for coming on the pod. Really appreciate it.
So good to talk to you, like.
And that's great that you're home, because I was just saying before we recorded, like, I didn't know you were in New York, and I've been over so many times doing shows. So yeah, we'll have to do stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be good.
All right, man. Stay safe. If you see anyone with this haircut at the protest, immediately just walk away slowly. Is my advice.
Just back up.
Is it better? Like, because here's the thing, you know, I could not have this Hitler hair, but then the alternative is this.
Oh man, did your wife cut your hair?
Listen, that's irrelevant. But the worst thing about it is I'm filming a TV show at the minute.
Right.
And it'll come out after lockdown, but I will have lockdown hair. So it'll look like people will be going like, why didn't you just like go to the barbers? So I'll have to like prefix every conversation I have with, we shot it during lockdown. I'll say that to a million people before you start. We did it in lockdown. Here's that better there.
That's a bit better. That's like a footballer haircut.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sure, I haven't had a haircut as you can see, I haven't had a haircut in about 4 months, I think. It's like, it's a mess.
I read about a guy, and you'll miss this sort of having these sorts of conversations living in New York. In one of the Sunday papers, it was like, up in Polglass, there's a guy doing non-social distance haircuts. So he's cutting hair in his garage. He's got a gambling machine and he's serving bottles of Magners. And I read that pretending to be outraged, but secretly being like, does he have an online booking system or what's happening?
No, absolutely. You just need to sneak out of the house, just be like, yeah, I'm going. Like, you just need to do it. Put on a wee mask, put on a wee like bandana, whatever.
100%. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for doing that, Cameron. Appreciate it.
Oh, man, it's really good to talk to you.
See you soon.
Yeah, see you in back.
Sippers, there we have it, the Tea With Me episode with my mate Cameron. I really loved chatting to Cameron there. That was really fascinating to have a conversation that I would never be able to have understood. You know, he gave me the perspective that I wanted to hear, and I can absolutely understand why anybody is protesting for this cause. So I enjoyed that. We'll stick the link to everything he was talking about in the description for the episode, and if that's something you want to go and look at, go look at it. And if you're just really ripping, you know, if you're like beyond raging, go like, no, you know, you don't have to go and do any reading if you don't want to. It's just there if you want to look at it. And like, statistically, there will be like one guy who's just so raging. He's like, no, you know. But to that guy, listen, we all have our own angle on things, and you do you, honey boo boo, you know. But Cameron's great, top man, and actually, since we recorded that episode, we've sent each other a couple of scripts that we've worked on. So you never know what we could cook up there. I really enjoyed that, and I think it's important that you have these conversations if you want to have them, and you should. You know, sometimes we can bury our head in the sands over things and just think everything's grand, and you know, a lot of this stuff is happening in London and New York or whatever, but it applies everywhere, and it definitely applies here. So I love that Cameron took the time to do that. I was about to say he's a great young guy, but that makes me sound 87. You know, I don't know how many years younger than me he is, but I'll maybe not say a great young guy, even though he is that. So yeah, check out any of those links if you want to. Thanks very much for watching and listening this episode, and we're back with another guest episode this Friday with Declan Lawn. Declan is another mate of mine who wrote the Salisbury Tomato, which is on BBC. It's a big drama about the Russian man and his daughter who got poisoned in a village or town in England, and that's like the main programme on British TV at the minute. So Declan sort of chatting to me about that, and it was a real fun episode. I think you're going to enjoy it. So we're just going to keep rolling, guys. I'm going to plug the Patreon before we go. Patreon.com/teawithmepodcast, and my tour is on sale. Ticket links available on my website, which is theshanetodd.com, as in, yes, the Shane Todd. teawithmepodcast.com if you want to check that out. Thanks so much for listening or watching this episode. The money toad's out. Sheeny boy Q about to go and have another cup of tea, because I'm going to be honest with you, this one's very cold now, but we'll drink it anyway.